This is the work of Stacy Kranitz. Shocking, thought-provoking, and emotionally intimate. This is what 14 years of Appalachia looks like. Perhaps you haven't seen it in this light, or maybe you have. But why spend 14 years photographing the same place? Stacy Kranitz was born in Frankfort, Kentucky, and currently lives in the Appalachian Mountains of eastern Tennessee. She began her life in photography as a photojournalist working for newspapers and magazines, but grew tired of photojournalism's claim of being entirely objective. She came to the conclusion that every journalist is shaped by their own perspective and human interpretation. After Stacy grappled with the innate flaws of photojournalism, she began working differently. Quote, "I started to think about making a body of work that would celebrate and critique the documentary tradition. I love documentary photography, but also feel the need to make work that reveals its problems." This is when she came to Appalachia. Quote, "I wanted to understand what caused poverty in the region and the photographic fetishization of it. It became clear that this would be an ideal place to make a body of work that explored the failures of representation in the documentary tradition." Stacy is known for her documentary photography and, interestingly, her own stage self-portraits. She began making self-portraits in a project where she would portray Leni Riefenstahl at World War II reenactments. Leni being a very controversial figure, Stacy said that she became intrigued by the complex story of a woman she both admired and deplored. In Riefenstahl, she found an artist with a focused vision and a murky set of morals. These gray areas spoke to her desire to understand people beyond the simplistic constraints of good and evil. She believes that the gray areas between ethical imperatives offer great potential to understand and relate to one another. Through her time in Appalachia, she was reminded of a character named Christy, the story of a woman whose idea of right and wrong were completely upended by the people she engaged with when she went into the Smoky Mountains of eastern Tennessee as a missionary to teach the Appalachian mountaineer settlers how to read, write, and lead a moral life. Stacy, still grappling with photojournalism and documentary photography's claim of entire truthfulness, began to think about how to best embed a conversation about the fantasy of objectivity in her work, and realized that she could do that by embodying Christy. Quote, "The way Christy became undone by the people she met in the mountains really felt similar to what was happening to me. Having my ideas about a place come undone in the making of the work is one of the most important motivations that keeps me working in the documentary tradition. I found myself dressing up as Christy and making more self-portraits." Documentary photography is defined as a genre that uses images to record the world in a truthful and objective manner, telling stories about people, places, and events. End quote. The question of who gets to tell what stories, the questions of representation and power dynamics, privacy, and perceived rights all became the bedrock of what we now talk about when we talk about ethics in photography. Stacy talks a lot about the ethics of the work she does. Most documentary photographers have a code of ethics which helps them go about telling the story of what's unfolding in front of them in a way that is respectful and true to the circumstances they're in. A lot of Stacy's work explores the failures of representation in the documentary tradition instead of ignoring them. Stacy's book, As It Was Given to Me, is a huge example of this. Quote, "I began by making images that represented stereotypes, and then I would seek out images that would defy those stereotypes. I pinned them to the wall and began to study the history of the region to learn more about the harm that photography has caused to Appalachia. I wanted to understand what caused poverty in the region and the photographic fetishization of it." As mentioned before in some of Stacy's work, like her self-portraits, you could almost say Stacy mixes fantasy with documentary. It's interesting when she does this because she's almost actively protesting the idea of an all-truthful medium. Quote, "I think a lot about how I go into a place that is very different from what I know with the fantasy of what I think that place is. The fantasy is accumulation of representations from literature, painting, film, and TV. When I'm in a place, this fantasy of it collides with the actual reality of what I'm experiencing. My photographs represent the collision between reality and my fantasy of it. The depiction of this collision is a more honest representation than any attempt at objectivity would be." Quote, "I'm looking to make myself, the subject, and the viewer uncomfortable enough to have a difficult conversation about representation." Stacy's work has been deemed controversial by many due to the content and the kinds of people she interacts with, often getting to really know people most others wouldn't dare to interact with. Stacy's ability to tackle complex situations and uncomfortable situations as a part of her unwavering desire for deeper understanding and meaningful engagement is inspiring and something that should be celebrated. Quote, "One way I try to achieve intimacy and connection in my work is by practicing non-judgment. I try to be incredibly conscious of the way I judge people I meet, and I feel it is my job to give them space to completely defy my idea of who I think they are. Please don't get me wrong, I judge people all the time, but when I am shooting, I work really hard to be sensitive about how it gets in the way of really knowing others." When asked about the people she photographs and their opinion of her work, she said, quote, "Everyone I spend time with in Appalachia feels differently about their relationship with this place and my interpretation of it. It would go against what I'm trying to do to speak on anyone's behalf about how they feel about the work. I will say that the reception of the work from the subject is important to me and informs the work. I'm always interested to hear what the people I photograph have to say about their representation, even if it hurts my feelings. I think a lot about the triactic relationship between myself, the subject, and the viewer, how we are all in this conversation with each other. The work is a conversation between the three of us." Stacy Kranitz's acknowledgement of photojournalism's faults and her approach to the documentary tradition allow her to create stronger and more intimate photographs with her subjects. This is due to her understanding of the craft and its shortcomings, the love, energy, and time she puts into learning about her subjects and their surroundings. Stacy challenges the way certain groups of people are represented in the media by resisting exploitative stereotypes and showing them in her light.